Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ground Up Podcast. I am your host, Terry Barga, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hello, Roy Mangrum.
So chatty all the time.
I know.
And we're excited to be back with you guys. We're on the NFM Podcast Network. To thank Defiance Fuel, and we'd like to thank Element for having us or sponsoring our podcast. And today we're sitting with my longtime Nashville friend, Ian White from Safe House Tattoo, and we're going to get in to a little bit of your story today after we play a little bit of like catch up, because Roy is meeting you for the first time, or just met you for the first time.
Yep. First time.
Which I'm actually super excited for you to meet, because Ian knows very young entrepreneurial Terry, and Roy knows much more mature entrepreneurial Terry.
So me and him are going to have long conversations.
Yeah.
after
I
this.
feel like I feel like I could peace out.
Yeah.
And this is a maybe a counseling session for one of you two.
Both of us.
So Ian, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. You're where you moved here from, and just get a little bit of backstory, and then we'll go into what you're doing now.
All right. Name's Ian White. I'm 5'10". I like long walks on the beach. No, I moved here in 2009 from Dayton, Ohio. I don't really claim Dayton, even though I lived there a long time. I grew up in Oregon.
Sure.
Military sent me to Ohio.
It's because they hated you.
Yeah. Well, I joked. I was like, I couldn't even pick out. I got my orders, and it was like, where is Ohio on the map? As a kid from Oregon, I literally didn't know.
Yeah.
So, got stationed there at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Got out of the Air Force in 98. Hung around. Started my tattoo apprenticeship in 2002. And then was a professional tattooer 2003. Been tattooing ever since. So this is my 22nd year of tattooing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I moved here in 2009. Yeah.
So that's the fun part of where our stories intersect.
Yeah, it was like weeks after I moved here.
Yeah.
We were at a house party.
Yep.
And it was like
At a potluck.
At a potluck, yes. Oh, one of the funky.
It was a Maker's Diet potluck.
Yes, that's what it was.
Kind of hilarious on the
There
sense
was a lot of quinoa.
Yeah, a lot of quinoa, kombucha.
Yep.
We were the weirdos.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about that in 2009 being something that we were doing. Is I joke about that all the time. Is that you couldn't find that stuff back then,
Unless you went to the potluck.
unless you went to our potluck.
Yeah, you go to the potluck.
But the fun fact there is I'm also from Dayton. We moved almost the exact same year.
Yeah.
Because it was 2009 for us too, but I think we moved here in November, and you moved in the summer, right? Or was it?
July
Yeah.
of 2009.
So we hadn't even been here a full year yet. And then we met at that potluck, and fast friends.
at Rado's house.
Yeah,
But he wasn't there.
that's right.
What, just broke in somebody's house to have a potluck?
No, his
there.
his wife at the time.
His wife at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I met him way later, which is funny because I was just on a thing with him
Were you?
recently, and I was remembering how I met him, and it was like I
Was that
missed him by a bunch of times, which I was in his house and he wasn't there.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah,
That's true too, because I didn't meet him until way later. Yeah, he actually had moved at the point when I met him. But yeah,
Anyway.
digression.
yeah,
So yeah, we met also from Dayton, and funny part of it is that I got tattooed at one of the shops that you worked at. I knew several of your friends / you knew several of my friends, and yet we had never met.
yep.
So
We had to move to Nashville to meet.
to move to Nashville for the world to get smaller.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
So it's a pretty crazy story.
yep.
But we have weathered, I would say we'd weathered a lot of storms together, just in the vicinity of one another, being entrepreneurs, kind of figuring out our own way at the same time.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's reflect on, because you started at Black 13,
yes.
Black 13 tattoo shop, I guess.
Yep. Black 13 Tattoo Studio. Yep.
And then you went from there to your own space. Let's go there. Let's talk about that, because your story's got those, just like mine, and almost simultaneously we went up and down the roller coaster of entrepreneurial life together. So
Well, and we lived that Nashville experience of a small business owner.
Yeah.
I mean, that part of it as a trip.
it was a trip, and
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, in a recession, like
You know, coming out of it.
Yeah, we're just coming out of it. I
Yeah.
think that's the part that is easy to forget.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we became friends, and then even more so, we kind of both had the like, I would love a sleeve, and I'm like, I would love personal training.
That's right.
Hey, neither of us can afford either of those things.
There you go.
Why don't we trade?
Yep.
So we became pretty tight through tattooing and training, and then you found your spot at the same time I was looking for a spot at Edge Hill.
That's a story in and of itself.
Yeah, and I just happened to be in the neighborhood or something when you guys went to look at it. Because I was training with you and Ashley over off Music Row somewhere, which wasn't very far from Edge Hill.
2 blocks, yeah.
Yeah, and then I liked the building and talked to Allison. Was that her name?
Oh, if you remember that, you're better than me.
She was my landlord for a while after too. So her and her
Okay.
husband, I rented from her for a little bit.
Gotcha.
She also helped me get into Marathon.
All right.
'Cause,
That makes sense.
So they had a space, and like a bunch of different things fell through with that. Like it was like, you can have this space, and so I like cut my ties with Black 13. I'm moving over to this space, let them know, and then in the process, that space fell through.
Ugh.
And it was like, so now we have this other space, but you'll have to get like plumbing installed.
Right.
And that was like a whole deal. And it was a little bit out of my budget. And, but I had to take it at that point. It was like the ships had been burned, you know?
No turning back.
Yeah. So, which is, you know, a good thing in hindsight. And then we were both at Edge Hill.
Right.
So I was at first a private studio, which only went a few months. I thought that's what I wanted. I thought I just was like, I'm going to go roll solo. And I figured out pretty quickly. I was like, I'm going to get pretty stagnant pretty fast if I'm here by myself.
Right.
So,
And I was over there all the time, and he's like, I need more people than just Terry.
yeah. But it was nice because I'd walk across the street and see what's up with you. And,
I got fond memories of those times. What's crazy, Roy, is Carrie and I and Ashley walk over from where we're training to look at a space on an appointment, walking over there, and there's Ian with a cup of coffee. I'm like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Yeah.
So I was like, we're looking at a space. Well, I think I just got a space. And you ended up looking at our space with us.
Yeah.
Like we did the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
It's so great.
That's how I ended up there at the same time. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
It was, and then the memories of, I would come over there with a cup of coffee, or you would come over to me with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Here you go. And I'm training. We're, chatting it up.
It was a big swap out. We had a nice coffee shop below
That's
us.
cool.
And,
Yeah.
but it was a great community of small business owners. That was the
Right.
thing. I still, in hindsight, I'm like, if that place would have never been sold, I would have been content staying there
I say the
forever.
same thing
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
It was fantastic. Everybody was there kind of supporting each other and not always, it was a very diverse array of different types of small businesses there. So it wasn't like we needed things from all these places, but we were pumping them all up,
Sure.
And then the building sold. That was like fast forward 2.5-ish years.
Right.
And the building sold, and that was my first experience of the characters out of a movie that are cast as the guy that comes in representing the money. And it's like, no, we're going to keep this how it is, and it's going to be great. And that lasted about 48 hours.
And you hear him laughing. Was he laughing when you walked out the door?
Yeah. It was like a
Yeah.
character in like Richie Rich.
You're
Like, it was
exactly
like,
right.
Yeah, it was trippy. That was, we won't name names, but that guy that represented them, I probably could summon his name if I thought about it, because it's like a trauma response at this point.
So I would say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, they were basically kicking everybody out.
Right. You got a better deal than I did, though. Because
still
you
had-
signed a longer lease.
I had a longer lease, which I think I'm one of the few that got what I got.
Right.
But in hindsight and talking to other people, I should have got more than what I got.
Yeah.
They basically let the incoming people buy me out of my lease. And at the time, it sounded like a bunch of money.
Right.
And it was like, all right, cool. But then they started playing hardball with like, well, we have this thing in the lease where we could move you to anywhere we want in the building if you don't take the buyout.
So
And they were going to move me into a space that didn't have handicap access, and I would have had to pay to put more plumbing in.
Gosh dang.
And it was just
I
a
don't
whole
remember-
thing.
I don't remember all that.
Yeah, it was, well, because you were going through your stuff.
Well, I was already gone
Yeah.
because I didn't like.
Well, you had moved to what became that speakeasy bar. But I think.
Right. Yeah, Old Glory. You've been to Old Glory, Roy? Well, that used to be part of my annexed gym.
Yeah. It was the coolest looking gym.
It was-
and
it
it
was
was
the
like,
best.
there was a big furnace in it and stuff. It was
Outside
crazy.
of sweeping up the cockroaches every morning.
Well-
Yeah.
From what's the name of the? Maybe I shouldn't throw under the bus.
Yeah, I wouldn't mention the restaurant. No. Yeah. People
can't-
could unfortunately probably put that
If
together.
you can't
but-
figure that out, then it's on you.
Yeah. But we basically, I mean, us and everybody else
Right.
was pushed out, and they brought in like J. Crew and Warby Parker and like all these other things, which none of those have actually lasted either.
No, they haven't.
They kind of, broke up the band and took apart what was kind of cool about the place.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's over there now.
That's what I was going to ask. Is the building still there?
The building's still there.
It's still there. It's still got a lot of like bigger Live Nations upstairs. I think that.
No, they're gone. They're over
Are
at
they?
they're over at the soccer place now. Geodis,
No
they're over there.
way.
Yeah, because they took over our whole floor.
That's
They're
right.
the ones that bought me out of my
Right.
lease.
So yeah, I don't even know what's over there anymore.
Yeah.
But the story is that the guys that developed it came from Atlanta, and they had another spot. Like I've actually been to the spot in Atlanta because one of my favorite burger joints is down there, Yeah Burger,
Nice.
and it's in a similar like old factory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's probably about in a half acre, just completely revitalized
Yeah.
and turned into cool shops. And I was like, oh, that's what they're going to do here. And I don't know if they actually. I knew that I learned later that their goal was to lack of a better term, remodel it, gentrify it by getting small business out, pull in anchor businesses, and then they were going to sell.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they actually sold or not.
I don't know. I don't think any of those anchor businesses are still there though.
No, they're definitely not.
It's been quite a while since I've been down that road. Though.
Yeah.
So it's, but fond memories of it. I mean, we both started literally across the street from each other over there, and we had the coffee shop there. Osa Coffee started out kind of over there, and now they're still over there actually because he went away and then came back. And
Yeah, and get that little garage space there.
yeah,
Well, in reflecting on that, as much as it's fun to reminisce on our story,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you learned? Because you took a bigger step from there and went to Marathon.
yeah.
And Marathon had its own challenges. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Contracts, getting things in writing. We were on a pretty firm timeline. We ended up having to close down Safe House for a few weeks because it was just not done in time. But I got to a point where every day I'd drive first to Marathon, check on the progress. Nothing would be happening because they had to build out
frustrating.
a box for us.
Yeah.
They had to. It was like, here's a cool space, and the building is beautiful. My wife and I actually got married there.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's
remember.
like old car factory from the 20s,
Yep. Oh,
brick.
Marathon Music.
Yeah,
Yeah, same building.
Marathon
everything.
Village is what it's called, but yeah, Marathon Music.
We were
Works.
kind of
Yeah.
inside the building behind like where American Pickers is. So everything took longer than you thought. That was sort of my first instance of at least double the timeline.
Yeah.
That was my first learning process of that. And the guy who owns the building and everything, he's wild. I'll just leave it at he's wild. But there was a day I went in and I was like, there's none of the guys are working on the space. And somebody was like, yeah, they're digging a moat at the owner's house.
Digging a moat.
A moat. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I was like a moat. Yeah, like a moat, like a castle has a moat. They're digging a moat. I'm like, I'm glad they're not here working on my space I'm waiting for, but
Right.
So we got all that, and then I think there was many lessons learned in it. One was like, we figured out an average of what our staff was paying, because our staff they needed a place to work, and they could have easily went someplace else for a while and then hopefully came back to us.
Sure.
So we just paid them. It cost us, but we were like, what's your average week? We'll pay you your average week until the place gets open. And that took us down to like the wire financially.
Yeah, I remember.
But we
this.
got in there. The other one, make sure you read, if you take your loan from Square, make sure you read the not necessarily the fine print. It wasn't super fine print, but we didn't do the math because of our business model. if $100 comes in, immediately $60 of that goes to the artists.
Right.
And then we break that 40 down pretty fast.
Sure.
Down to like whatever. Well, Square doesn't read it as that. They take their cut off the 100.
Mm-hmm.
So we were paying back as a percentage of total being
15
come
off the
through.
100.
Yeah, it gives you less
15%,
margin to work with.
yeah.
Yeah, so we were eating ramen for a while but the good side of that same thing was that we paid off that loan that we took out to build out Marathon. We paid that loan off in like 4 months.
Yeah.
But it was like $5,000 a month or something. Like we thought we were going to spend like $500 a month because
Sure.
we just didn't carry the one. And we kind of were like, oh crap. But we got it done. We like just hunkered down. We didn't have kids yet. It was like, we're just going to do it. And we did it.
I remember Square handing out. Square was like the Oprah Winfrey of loans.
Oh, they were
They
like,
still
yeah.
are.
Yeah,
they
you get a
still,
loan.
we still get the
You get a
like,
loan.
You
You get a loan.
You're approved for $20,000.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that fine print does get you. Even though I'd used it a few times.
Yeah.
Like it works well as a payroll loan if you need to bridge a gap.
Yeah, yeah. And there's ways, and we've still stuck with Square for years. My wife is awesome with all the finance side of the business, and she's negotiated us down to a rate that's like, I mean, even when people come at us and they're like, we can give you the best rate around, we're like, can you do this? And they're like, absolutely not. So, we can't, we're with them,
Yeah.
And we've been with Square for 12 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So as much as that thing was kind of a pain in the butt at that time, it wasn't actually Square's fault. It
No.
was like our not really realizing what we had done kind of thing.
I think that's the lesson, right? That's if you were to share that with anybody else, is just make sure you understand.
Yeah,
what
just
you're
know
getting
fully
into.
what you're getting
Yeah.
into, because it can be a great thing. Had we not been able to do that, we would have had a hard time making the move that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So
Now,
it's
when you were paying your employees,
yeah.
and this is always the cynical side of me, because it would have been real easy for them to take your check
Yep.
and still go over here and work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Was there like any kind of an agreement that you drew up with those guys, or you just knew them well enough?
No, I knew him well enough, and I think I've also tried to just always kind of hold everybody with an open hand in that sense of like, if it's meant to be, it'll be.
They're gonna do what
If
they
you
want.
want to do that and burn this bridge, that's on you.
Yeah.
Because stuff on this side of the bridge is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, it's always a worry.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were even moving to where we are now, we thought we were going to have no shop for a while, and we were like, great, we're going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more staff.
Yeah.
Who since then, inflation and prices going up, their average per week was a lot more. We're like, oh my God, how are we
Not
going to do
again.
this?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't work. It didn't end up that way. But down to the wire. I mean, when we moved to where we are now, we got our final inspection an hour before the first appointment.
No way.
Yeah.
Hope that passes.
Yeah.
It was too. I mean, we had to have all the staff know, hey, because it was the health inspection was the final. We went into a place that was for the most part turnkey ready.
Right.
We only had to do a little bit of demolition, really.
Yeah.
Patchwork to get
Well,
it. To
so
where it's-
Marathon gave you a similar feel, and I'm just going to recap this in order to keep going. But it gave a similar look and feel as Edge Hill Village.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that when you made that move, I was like, yeah, that's where you should be. Man, that's where I should be.
Yeah.
Because that spot was like, it had the old factory vibe, very similar to Edge Hill Village. It felt like small business. Mm-hmm. It also was, there were other challenges outside of like the build out, right? Like that place went from being a cool little niche spot in Nashville as it, becoming trendy to a tourist attraction.
Oh, yeah. And that's why we left.
Yeah.
I mean, for the shop that took over our space,
Yeah.
it was perfect for them. They're a walk-in type shop. And for us, we were like an appointment only.
Yeah, and it'd be real tough.
It just was. We were.
Parking's
Parking's-
suspect at best.
It is definitely suspect over there.
Oh, yeah.
But even like the type of shops that were in there, when I went in, it was like makers.
Right.
There was people. There was like a guy that doing leather, people doing custom shoes and bags, a bow tie guy, but like people knew everybody. Abhijit and
cool,
Willie had
yeah.
a place there, and it was like 3 months after I moved in, and they all left. I was like, oh, I think I missed something here,
Yeah.
but I'm already here. And like visually speaking, my space was beautiful.
It
Like,
was.
It was stunning, and Victory Tattoo has it now, and they've made it look beautiful and kept it up. But when like the gym that was there,
Yeah.
Marathon Fitness was there, it got replaced with a Jack Daniels like a store,
gift store, yeah.
yeah. And then
That's a bad sign.
yeah, and then the place that was across the hall from us was Siri Hoover Bags, which is like a fairly popular handmade one-off handbag company. And now that is a Harley Davidson gift shop. And it's like for the building, I'm sure it's great.
Yeah,
it's
good for y'all.
perfectly fit, you know. But we were like, I feel like I'm on Broadway 2.0 here. We got to get out of here.
Is this Pigeon Forge?
It felt it. It really, you walk around the halls and it was like, the funniest part was you'd walk through the halls and you'd see people see our sign and make comments about it.
I remember
and not
this.
realizing that the owner of it is standing right behind them.
Yeah.
You know, like, I can't believe people do that to themselves, you know.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like,
Yeah, weird. And you
Yeah.
walk her the door.
yeah. Well, don't do it to yourself.
So how long
Yeah.
was you in that building?
Man, I want to say 3 years or 3 or 4 years. We had signed another lease because we had to have somebody take over our lease.
Right.
So I want to say it was like 3.5 years that because 2019 we moved into where we are now, and we'll be there forever. So
Yeah, you like that. That's one of those. You know, that's one of the things that I want to make sure we recap here. As much as we're talking about lessons learned through some of
Yeah.
this pain that you're enduring, which are several. There are.
which pain do you want? To
Yeah,
do?
there are plenty.
Yeah.
You are also moving because of growth, which
Yes.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
So take us there for a hot second, and then we'll talk about where you're at now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we were in Marathon, we had 6 booths, and we at one point we were like, as opposed to leaving Marathon, we were going to open 2 locations.
Yeah.
There was a new development that was supposed to be built in North Nashville, and we were going to do our second location there. So we weren't so far apart that we couldn't assist each other, but it was enough apart to be apart.
Sure.
And in that process, we started hiring new people. So we ended up overstaffing our 6 station spot where I was tattooing in a little closet for a while, quite literally. Yeah. So, I mean, it was like everybody was booked out so far, we couldn't even keep up with the demand at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, that growth was like, we didn't plan for it. Now it's like, okay, well, somebody years ago told me that it's like, there's a difference between what's next and what's more. And that was just what's next. You know, there's times that my brain is like, I want more.
Sure.
I'm not going to act like I don't like money,
Yeah.
you know, but the ways that I come about getting it usually are better when it's what's next. And then the money just happens to happen, as opposed to what's more usually gives me a headache and a lot of life lessons that I wasn't necessarily asking for, but I'm usually grateful I get.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
You do the right thing, right? And the more will naturally, the money will follow.
Yeah.
That's built. I think that's just wisdom in building better business.
Yeah. Well, and the trippy part with it is you can go after the same thing, and whatever your mindset part of it is like the driving force is going to take you there in a, you know, either the tortoise or the hare kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I feel like weekly I have to be like, is this thing next or is this thing more? Even the convention we're doing now, it's like, is this next or is this more? And we've landed on it being next. But it's still like every decision we make, we have to be like, is that next or more? You know?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I loved that stage of you at Marathon because that's when I felt cool for knowing Ian White.
Oh, jeez.
When people are like, "Where'd you get that?" I was like, "Oh, I got Ian's one of my close friends, and he does my tattoos." Oh, I've heard all about him. I was like, "Yeah, we can hit him up." Dude, I've been to Ian White's walking billboard for about 10 years.
It's helpful.
not to mention Uncle Ian's tattooed all but one of my children.
Yeah.
He's sitting behind.
He's already asking about it.
sitting
so.
behind the ones and twos over here.
He's ready
Yeah.
for his
Yeah.
the championship tattoo.
Yes,
Yeah.
championship tattoos, right?
A little trophy on there.
Yep.
I love that you said that because we go to the same barber, but we had different appointments this week, about an hour apart. And I told him, I was like, did they all talk to you? He said, what do you mean? I was like, I left there and I told every one of them, my son's coming in. He needs a championship treatment. Give him the championship haircut. Obviously super proud. Right?
Yeah.
Super proud dad. And he's like, Dad, you didn't. I was like, yeah, I did. And I obviously didn't, but it's just.
But you
So
should.
when you said that, I was
Yeah.
it's even better. Well, we're proud of you, Ezra.
We'll book it for a year out.
Yeah, we're proud of you. But yeah, so that was cool because you were starting to gain popularity, and I think it's not only because your art and the way you imagine art and tattoo, which is really cool because he sketches everything. Like he'll hand sketch it on you, which I freaking love that. I regret every tattoo I have before knowing Ian for that reason.
Oh, for like this, you don't like stencils?
I don't, and I thought that was the only way. And then
I did too. until-
Yeah, this guy comes to me with 5 markers in his mouth, and he's like, "Stand up there." And I'm freaking. He's Picasso, and I'm the canvas, and I'm like, "This is cool." And he's making.
How many tattoos were you in before he did that with him?
2. I was too many tattoos in before he did that.
With him?
No. You started doing that from the get go, didn't you?
I've done a mix of both with you, but yeah, a lot of it because we're usually piecing stuff on top of other stuff.
Sure.
The markers just lay on better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I do remember the back piece.
Yeah, we had to stencil that one. Yeah.
Well, that was also hanging on the wall, and every time I'd come in there, he'd
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, see that on the wall?" And I was like, "I'm not going to do a back piece." And it took you like 3 or 4 tries before I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess we're doing it." And then sure enough, got a sweet back piece
Wear
for
him
me.
down.
Like,
My second from this artist, he did the draw thing. And I'm like, I don't know that we know each other this well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Look, and it did not look like anything. I'm like, I don't.
That's the trippy part with it.
There's some
I mean,
highlighter marks.
You don't
Yeah.
see what you
red, some
see.
blue.
Yeah.
I'm like, I
It's a
don't
big trust thing. I will
Yeah.
say. I mean, I've seen. I mean, even looking at my own chicken scratch I put on people with Sharpies, and I'm like, you've seen my portfolio, right?
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, but it's a big amount
It's
of
a trust,
trust.
yeah.
Well, and that's the advice I give nowadays when people they're always asking about tattoos. I think a lot of times people assume I'm a tattoo artist because I'm so tattooed.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but I know a really good one. I'm like, what are your tips? It's like, go to a guy. Like, art is the primary thing you need to be focused on here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go to anybody with a stencil from Pinterest. Like,
Yeah,
unless you say I want something like this and it's a jumping off point, but let the artist do their thing.
Let him cook.
Yeah, let them cook because it's you'll always be surprised and
Yeah. Well, and also
it'll come out way better than you thought.
I mean, some people get stuff for meaning, and some people get stuff for fun, and just let whichever direction that is be fine. You know.
So yeah, watching you grow from that into where you're at now, let's talk about that because the growth was a big thing. Your books are booked out, right? You had a great and you still do. You always have a great crew of tattoo artists, and I think that's a tribute to how you and Lindsay. I mean, you put yourselves first, and you make sure you guys are getting paid, but you take real good care of those folks.
We try to. Yeah.
And it shows. I mean, it's loyalty. I've seen guys go and come back. So let's talk about that for a hot second because that's not always a smooth road.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've always tried to have. I mean, like anything, I try to look at it as like, what would I want if I was just an artist in this shop?
Yeah.
You know, what would I need? And I have to also think of it in, like, even when I left Black 13, there's aspects of like, it was really just I wanted to be home for dinner. I just wanted to be done at 6.
Right.
And that's it. It was Black 13 was a really well run place, but there's still aspects of my own ego that would then be the filter that I looked at how things were going.
Sure.
And in hindsight, and now being a shop owner for as long as I have been, I'm like, ooh, man, I really was like all about myself in those moments. But I have to still give my staff the credence of like, that's okay. You're going to have those times. And I have to make sure that I'm transparent with them, but also providing as much as I possibly can to them. But also not like rubbing that in their faces either.
Yeah.
You know, we it's a weird, like, you know, I don't want to go around being like, if only you knew what I provided for you. But it's
Right.
also
Yeah.
a thing, you know, it goes both ways because, like, I also need to know what you provide for us as a shop.
Yeah.
It's weird, it's delicate, but we try. I mean, we're always trying to think of like what's one more thing that we can add into that pot of things that we provide.
Yeah.
You know, and we kind of now each thing is like almost like its own little business model. It's like we're researching whether or not we can provide ink for all the artists, and it's like there's a broad spectrum of ink that's used. Is like, is it really work out?
Yeah.
And so we have to break it down into cost and like, does this thing work over a long thing? And, you know, we're in a nice space and I own the space. So like our overhead's a little more than like kind of the average studio.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, we don't want to like, you know, disregard that and not add things in. So
That's a part of it that I love and I've always admired is how you're always looking for that next thing to improve company culture.
Yeah.
So I love that part. But we're going to talk about your the new space, and we'll do that right after this break.
Here in Nashville for the 7th Country Music Marathon and Half Marathon. I think it says a lot about the city of Nashville, what it has to offer.
All right, before the break, we were talking about you moving to this new building. Let's talk about that real quick because I think you did something that we both learned some of the similar lessons about signing leases. And I say this today when my staff is like, we need to get a space. We need to get a space. I was like, that's going to be hard because I ain't leasing again.
yeah, not in Nashville.
Because my story was different than yours. I kept having to downsize in order to find traction, in order to stabilize, and then to grow from there. Because, you know, I guess my eyes are bigger than my stomach on a lot of those things. You made a really smart call, moving from Marathon to buying a building. Talk about that because you also changed. I mean, you got out of downtown at that point too.
Yeah.
You were pretty centrally located, and you took a risk there too. So let's go over that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was also a thing of, you know, what I had mentioned before, we were trying to do 2 locations, and I had hired that staff on, and they were like, we don't want to go in 2 locations. We want to all work together. I was like, crap. But it ended up being a good thing. So that's when we decided to abandon the Marathon thing and try to move everybody over to North Nashville because there was more booths. Oh, excuse me. Well, in that process, whoever owned that project in North Nashville ended up being shady and kind of dipping town with a whole bunch of people's money, including ours. So we ended up with no location, and we had already sold out our lease at the other location, so we couldn't backpedal into it. And so I was kind of in crisis mode, putting out feelers, and found through a client this space available, but only for sale. And it was like, oh boy, I don't know if we're ready for that.
So how long were you guys shopless?
We ended up not being shopless,
So
but
you
it
had
was
sold
literally
the-
to the wire.
So you had sold the lease,
Yeah.
but you hadn't. It wasn't like I have 30 days to get out, right? So
Well, we were about
something-
that.
Okay, so
yeah.
so you were still working, but it was like the sand is falling fast.
Oh, it's
And
falling fast, and I knew, like, turnover time of like, well, if I got to get plumbing put in, I got to do X, Y, and Z. So I had to find a place that was turnkey ready. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have time to put drywall up. Like, it was like, and admittedly, I mean, I live in Inglewood. I always thought it would be great to be in Inglewood, but the only places for lease were like connected to a Papa John's and stuff. Like, it wasn't my vibe.
Yeah, it wasn't a cool vibe.
So when this spot came up, and it's like 1.8 miles from my house.
Wow. That's
And
good.
so it was like this weird, like, ideal, like, surely this can't work. But my wife is so good with our books and has kept such a good relationship with our bankers. So I messaged both of them at the same time. I was like, this is what just got put in front of me. Can it happen? Banker got back, said, yep, it can. This is what you would need. Lindsay's like, we can come up with this. Would this work? And then, like, I think it was like 2 hours later, we're like, we'll take it. Like, it went from like sitting outside, feeling pretty low outside of Turnip Truck, eating some sushi, going, what am I going to do? I'm going to lose Safe House. To 2 hours later, I'm standing in what's
Your
now our
own
space.
building.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's crazy.
and it's a mixed use space. So it's a condo essentially, but it's 2,600 square feet. We were very fortunate to have bought in the neighborhood when we did, so we had equity on the house. We begged, borrowed, and stole everything we could just to make it work.
It's the entrepreneurial way.
Yeah. And then, COVID a year later, less than a year later.
Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't.
So we got into a place.
I didn't realize that was
We moved in July of 2019, and it was March that we shut down.
tag on.
And, but another thing where, like, it's funny, I joke that, like, I'm kind of the trophy wife of the situation. Like, I draw the pretty pictures and I shake all the hands and I go on the podcasts and I do all the things. But, like, the work behind the scenes that is what our shop is, the entity that our shop is now is beyond my scope. I am relational.
Sure.
Almost entirely at this point. And that's not a bad thing. But the work that my wife does for the place is, like, what really is the engine. And that's not to take away from, like, the quality of the artist that we have there and all those things, but, like, we wouldn't have the four walls.
I mean, your imprint and her imprint
Yeah.
are starkly opposite, but
complementary.
They're very complementary, and I live that life too. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is why you and I think we're so fast friends, because we were relational,
Yeah.
or we are relational, and that's how we build business. Is that way? It's how we build
Yeah.
loyalty. It's how we.
Half the stuff I do, my wife won't watch this
Yeah.
because she will. She's like, I couldn't do that. I can't watch you do it. I don't know how you put your face on things. Like, I'm like, whatever. I'm just egomaniac enough to, like, just give me a mic and a camera, and it makes things go.
Yeah.
So
COVID happens.
So COVID happens,
and
and Lindsay did all the different things. I mean, she sat just like, what's the government going to do? And we were fortunate. Mortgage got deferred. My house is on a VA loan, so our house loan got deferred only because it was on a VA loan. First, they told us to get bent, and then, like, 12 hours later, it was announced, like, any federally backed loan had to get deferred fast. We're, like, calling them back. So anyway,
what were you saying?
Yeah. So yeah, we tightened all the things down and got through it, and then we have what we have.
Yeah.
And it's in my neighborhood, and I get to be part of my community, and I paint murals at my kids' schools and do stuff like that. So it is cool. It feels good. I mean, it's like, even today, I leave the house, stop by the shop, make a coffee at the shop, get on the road, come here. It's all right there, and it's pretty great.
What was the building before you guys bought it?
No, it was a new building.
Brand new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we kind of lucked out. I mean, more than kind of. We didn't have to do a build out because whoever was building it before ran out of money and abandoned the project. So it was this like a blood.
Talk about providential.
Yeah, it really was. And it was crazy like that. Like I went up to just peek my head in the window, and this guy's walking up, and I'm like, I know I look like, even though, and I'm like, oh, I got to explain myself to this guy who's about to approach me to ask why I'm looking in the windows of this thing. And it's a guy that gets tattooed at the shop. And he's like, hey, Ian, what are you doing? I was like, well, we're thinking about buying this. He's like, I can let you in. I'm here to take photos of it because it hadn't even been posted yet. And it was like,
come on.
Well, don't worry about the photos because we're going to buy it. But yeah, it was like, and then, I mean, just different things on different things. But yeah, some like blood research place. It was all supposed to be like for drawing blood and studying blood. And
how crazy is that?
It was, it is crazy.
That's even you want to talk about further providential, like the fact that they were building it out to be a sterile location.
Yeah.
It's perfect for a tattoo shop.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, it was definitely crazy. We had to get all the lights are on sensors because you'd walk around with contaminated hands. And we still have that problem if you're sitting there just doing like something really tight
The lights shut off.
and the lights will shut off on you. So you'll be like doing this, trying to get the lights to turn
throw a
back
water
on.
bottle in the-
Yeah. One of these days we're going to get them wired to switches. But for right now, I'll walk through my house and I'll be like, these things aren't going to just turn on for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I forgot.
You get
I
spoiled.
forgot about that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your mural right there.
Yeah.
I wondered where they came from.
Marty painted it. But it was
Marty's-
it was for me.
It's
Yeah.
all graffiti too. It's awesome.
Old Marty Riot.
That's the backdrop for the. That's a good plug. It's a backdrop for the Music City Mindset podcast that you can catch every other Tuesday,
There you go.
right here on the NFM Podcast Network.
Nice.
So, quick recap of where you are now. You're
Yes.
in 20. You said 2,400 square feet.
2,600 square feet.
2,600 square feet. How many tattoo artists are you dealing with? What does the days look like now?
Yeah, it's trippy. We have 10 stations now. So
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I yearn for a simpler time, but at the same time, I love everybody that works there. So
Yeah.
it's like, it is great. My days are trippy. I think it's like, it's a constant moving target, but I'm generally done. Even on a long day for me, I'm done at 3-ish, to where a lot of the days I'm able to pick my kids up from school because their school is halfway between my house and the place. When they start going to middle school's across the street from the shop.
Wow.
I'm like, come over, grab a broom, earn some money.
That's right. Let's go.
So I think one of the things, and it's been pretty in my face to myself lately, is like what things start feeling squirrely. I went to therapy around this a while back, specifically around tattooing. I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I didn't have anybody to talk to about it because I have to exude this confidence.
Oh yeah, we
And
understand that.
the greatest thing my therapist did, I will summarize it down, but she's like, all these things that you're stressed about, so those are your fault. And it was like, come again? I thought you were going to like
Say
point me
what?
at like who I
Yeah.
needed to be pissed off at. And it was like, well, just you.
Yeah.
Simple.
And she said it in a much better
Sure.
way than that, but
They normally do.
it was like a aha moment of like boundaries, expectations, all those different things, but having them, I mean, you guys got to know this too. It's like, as being your own boss, you are a terrible person to work for. We expect too much of ourselves in the sense
Yeah,
of like,
you're 100%
you know,
right.
and having that balance and things like that. So it's like every so often, like currently where I'm at in my days, it feels squirrely. And I'm like, I need to journal. I need to find out what's important. I need to lean into that. I need to sit back. Like I felt super guilty about playing video games the last day or so. And I'm like, I needed it. I needed to turn my brain off.
Well, and that's
You know.
I want to go down that route because Roy and I we're hot in the middle of getting the Expo planned out, which we share at a venue where you guys did your tattoo convention. There is and we've been working. Roy and I have been working together for almost 4 years, right? Roughly 4 years. There is that's the startup period, right? And we've reflected on your startup period, and I've been in many startup situations before. There is something about that section of the entrepreneurial journey that almost grooms you to be that, to have pseudo unrealistic expectations of others, to not give yourself grace, to dial it back, to not know when to punch out on the clock and just be like, nope, we're done for today because what we're doing right now is actually causing us more stress.
Yep.
Because we're not getting a return on it.
Yep.
Right. It makes us that way because a lot of that drive, though, the other side of that coin is that when it is working, it's working.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all of us coming from our regular 9-to-5 jobs before we did this. That wasn't the case. You clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
There is no growth. There is nothing exciting about it. You get addicted to the growth of being an entrepreneur, but you end up falling victim to that mentality of you can't rest, you can't stop,
Yeah.
don't quit. And then when you hire people, sometimes it's reflective on that. I wouldn't say all the time. I think Roy's better at that than I am, as far as
Of the balance.
as far as expectations of others.
It's taken a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like any muscle, right?
Yeah.
It's trained over time.
Yeah.
Like, now I can stop and not do nothing all day.
Yeah.
Totally cool with it. I'll go sit and play Grand Theft Auto and blow everybody up.
Yeah.
And I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But then there is that time where you're like, I gotta keep the bus moving.
Yeah.
And there is that thing, like, probably when I was a few years in, where I was probably brutal. Like, I really wanted everybody to care as much as I cared.
Yeah.
And that's not realistic. But then but once you have that, hey, here's what the expectation is, not my expectation, but overall,
Right.
because it would be almost impossible for anybody to reach my expectation.
Yep.
Because it's mine.
Right.
It's my livelihood. It's, my 15 years of, toiling to get to a point.
Right.
But you learn that, hey, with this person, am I getting their best? If I'm getting their best, then I'm good.
Yeah.
But that's a learned trait, man.
Yeah. It's that's not easy.
It's not, and it is the thing of like constant reminders, and it's like kind of equating it like working out a muscle kind of thing. It's like just because I get my arms up to this size, if I stop and just decide that's how big my arm is,
That's it.
if I don't do at least some curls sometimes and
Yes.
remind my bicep of what I want it to look like,
Yeah.
I get somebody. I don't remember where I heard this, but it was like nobody will care about your business the way you care about your business, and it was
I've
a
heard the
thing of
same
like,
thing.
Yeah.
It's so right.
it was just simple. Like I have to remind, if I see something in the bathroom and I'm like, well, I'm just going to wipe this down. It's not that they didn't do it. It's that I can do it in this moment. But until I remind myself of that, it's that they didn't do this. And I'm frustrated and I'm like having these expectations, and it's like they probably cleaned it on the schedule I told them to clean it on, but today's the day before that they're supposed to do it again, and I'm in there like,
What's cool though too, and if you think about this, like in the next week or so, you'll see it. So I clean the bathrooms at my warehouse. I always do. I don't know why I do it. It's not that they're filthy. I just
cathartic.
sometimes I gotta find shit to do because
yeah,
they don't need me a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just in the way.
yeah,
But so I clean the bathroom, I don't know, like Monday. So we're usually closed on Fridays. So Thursday, I'm just walking around with a cup of coffee with nothing else to do, and somebody walks past me with the trash from the bathroom. I'm like, well, hell, how about that? They see what you're doing. They're like,
yeah,
oh, we can't forget to clean the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're neglecting. It's just we're also asking them to do all these other things. So that's maybe, they're just not thinking of those things. But
It's
when
not
they
that
see
purview.
you,
Yeah.
when they see you do it, they're like, he wants the bathrooms clean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that even kind of is in that similar of like people could read through it. It's like if I'm doing that so that they see me doing that, they're like, yeah, Ian's over there cleaning the bathrooms again. He doesn't think we see it, and I'm like, but if I'm just doing it because we like doing it,
Yeah.
people could tell the difference. It is a thing. I mean, I thought I was gonna move into like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to clean the shop, I'm going to do these other things. And I did it for like a week because one of our shop manager was gone. And I was like, I hate this. I just want to draw skulls. Absolutely. I thought this is what I wanted. Yeah.
You don't miss the apprentice days.
No, I thought I did. I was like, I love doing dishes at my house. It's something about it. It's like I stare into the nothing and whatever. And I thought that I would have that same thing by cleaning the shop. And I did for about a day. And then I was like, so we pay somebody to do this, right?
Yeah, there you go. If not, can we please call someone?
Yeah.
That's Roy and I have talked about that with like when we need to check out, like when we realize that, because a lot of the things that we're all talking about in the world of entrepreneurship are giant projects, right? We have a goal for our business that is on an annual schedule,
Yeah.
right? And we're trying to achieve that annual goal. If we get there quicker, great. I think we're hard pressed to believe that we won't get there quicker, but some days we're spinning our wheels. So sometimes I'll get out and just go for a walk, or I'll do yard work. Like Roy and I talk about that. He'll do yard work. Dishes are one for me. because man, nothing is greater than a finished project.
Yeah.
I can start it and I can finish it and I can be like, great, that took 15 minutes.
Accomplished something.
Right.
Yeah.
Something
What's
got
that
done
book,
today.
That Navy admiral wrote that book, Make Your Bed. You ever read that book?
Oh, I have it.
It's so good. It's short. It's quick. Get the audio because he reads it.
Okay.
See but it's the like start with a victory, made your bed.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's the little things.
they add up though. I mean, that's you get into like Jocko Willink stuff or any of that stuff. It's like those little things add up, or even the Atomic Habits. I've been in a thing of like that's a great book. Essentialism has kind of been my sort of not to sound blasphemous, my Bible of sorts of like it's this pursuit of less but better.
Yeah.
And that's been on my like plate because I think it's tough. And maybe you guys, I would assume you guys relate to this. That sort of entrepreneurial small business owner thing. I think of it like I don't ever want to be a golfer. But every so often you hit one that goes just the right way, and you're like, I could see myself being a golfer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You hit 100 of them where it pinged and did whatever. But there's that sweet spot where you're like, oh, I see why people do this.
Yeah. This must be what it's like.
Yeah. And every once in a while we have those hits in what we do where you can justify the lack of self-care or the lack of balance or whatever. You're like, but doing all that got me to this. And it's easy to forget the other 80% where it was like, you're kind of spinning your wheels the other 80%, but it's like, I don't know, it's like still showing up.
Dude,
I'm in that now. Like I'm drawing
you're
tons
preaching
of stuff right now.
I'm
It's like,
I'm feeling a little convicted over here.
Well,
Squirmy in my chair.
it's what's going on right now with me is like I draw a bunch of stuff because I feel inspired.
Yeah.
And then I put it out and I kind of wait and see what kind of feedback I get as far as like people booking those drawings, whatever. And like, a lot of times that works really well, and a lot of that stuff gets booked. I feel great, and I think honestly the economy right now, whatever it might be, not as much of it got booked. Some of it got booked, and now I'm in this place where I feel like I'm drawing out of a franticness as opposed to the enjoyment of it. And I'm like, I needed to put this. That's why I started playing video games the other day.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm going to actually get a lot more out of Zelda in this moment than I am like drawing something that's probably going to not be very good.
Yeah.
Because I'm drawing out of franticness, not
Force.
Got to find a hit.
Yeah. You don't want to force those creative juices.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's another positive thing of like, speaking of the video games or doing the dishes or whatever, is that you often catch an idea.
Yeah.
Or you often catch, maybe it's just a refreshed mind. Even if it's in 15 minutes or an hour and a half, sometimes that happens to me on a workout. As I run over to my tablet and I make a quick note of something that's like, finally figured out how to, to solve that problem. That comes in those moments when you just throw your hands up.
Yeah.
I think that feels like universal design to me. It's like when you chill the F out, oftentimes the things that you were seeking come closer to you than you were ever going to get running to them.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yep.
And I think that if that's an overarching message of this podcast specifically, I think it's an important one.
Yeah.
That leads back into you creating those boundaries for your life. So you're talking about your counselor, kind of holding up the mirror, and you making some changes there, and that leads to you being able to go get your kids.
Yeah.
That leads to the fact that you can pop into the shop this morning. It's running,
Oh yeah.
it's just humming along.
They don't miss me.
Yeah. And you're making coffee and they're like, oh, Ian's here. Ian's here. Guys, Ian.
And then I was gone just
you're
as
gone
quick.
just like that. Or Roy, speaking of going in and you've got it. That's when it's dialed in.
Yeah.
Knowing what to do in that moment. So I would like to hear both of you talk about that, because there's an avenue of, I'm working with the magazine, which we're one of our partners on, as well as the Expo, but the magazine right now feels an awful lot like that startup grind to me. And I do my best to keep my boundaries. But someone in my shoes who's in that, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel for sure, but someone who's in my shoes of like, spinning those entrepreneurial wheels to get where you're at, maybe you both can talk about that in your own way of like, what does it feel like to, scan and look at your business from up top for a hot second, because that's a gift. So I'm interested to hear both of your perspectives on that.
So you go first.
I looked first.
It's awesome, and for me, it is cool.
Yeah.
It's also unnerving.
Yeah.
At times, like what am I supposed to be doing? That happens, but then the other part is, what if this breaks?
Yeah.
That's what I always have fear of. What if I've got an awesome team? What if I lose this one? Like, I have one that's pregnant, and I'm like, okay, she's out the month of June. What do I do? That's stuff like that that's a little unnerving. But it is. It's nice to come in and not have to be there.
Right.
It is a good feeling, because it means, you've trained everybody the way to do the things that need to be done, and you've instilled in them, most importantly, hopefully you've instilled in them enough of a pride of that brand or your business that they do take it as theirs. It's not going to be as you would, but they do care.
Sure.
And they want to put out a good product as well. So, the biggest thing, like I said, is as I always worry, what if the wheels fall off? So, but that's just what I go through.
Well, before you hop in, I think some of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's that justification that you were talking about, is that's what kind of keeps us in there and hovering, is what if it breaks?
Yeah.
Not that we shouldn't think about that, but what's the alternative? Like, what's the alternative to that fear in that moment? Like the confidence that if it breaks, there are systems and processes put in place to where we can fix X, Y, and Z, which you've been huge in that for me, especially in the very beginning. What's your process? You can't hold somebody accountable to a job description that you didn't write for them.
Right. And that's part of, that's like my only saving grace in that fear.
Yeah.
Is because I'm, but it's still like, for me, like one lady's been with me 8 years. I'm like, man, it's like my security blanket.
Sure.
They're
the walking key to the castle.
Like, she can finish my sentences. I'm like, it's special to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What about you, Ian?
I mean, similar. I think sometimes I wish that I had a more dedicated, every year at this time, I'm going to take a look at the thing from a 30,000 foot view and all this, but I tend to do it when I feel like everything is like about to break.
on edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't necessarily help.
No.
It's like, we have found a resilience in what we do, what we offer, how we offer it, things like that. We've ended up on the other end of things of like, okay, we're okay. That might have been hard. Like, we lost 3 artists last year, and one of them had been with us for 7.5 years. And it's a natural progression in our industry. It's like, all right, it's time for me to open my own place.
Yeah.
So they did that. They left on good terms, all that. And it didn't change that we lost
Yeah.
3
That doesn't make
great
it hurt less.
artists. Yeah, it was like,
It hurts,
whew.
but you get it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I couldn't hold anything again. I did the same thing.
You did the same thing, yeah.
Years before it.
Right.
And then and we got through it. But it felt in the moment, just like financially, just looking at it, of like, whew, boy, that was a chunk, I don't know if you watched Mad Men, but there was a whole
God, I love that show.
there was a period of time where there was like in the seasons where they lost Lucky Strike.
Yep.
And that was like 50% of their thing. And that's all I kept running through my head. And I lost like 3 people. I was like, okay, those guys made it through, right? Right? They made it through. That, and thankfully, I still tattoo. Like, I'm able to do the thing that
You can fill the gap.
I can fill the gap a little
Yeah.
bit. And I do look forward to the time when the time comes that I don't have to tattoo. I want to keep tattooing for a long, long, long time. But there's some times where my financial obligation to tattooing ends up becoming frustrating. But it is what it is. Like, we have a great thing, and I keep making it out in my head like I'm ancient. I am middle-aged. That's fine. But I'm like, dude, my end of my days is around the corner, and it's like I'm pretty far off.
You got
of
a
it.
long time
Yeah,
left.
it's
Well, it's just what we do.
I know,
again,
man.
it's what we do. It's whatever the fear is that makes us, that drives us. Like, if there's not something that's kicking us into what's the next thing look like,
yeah.
we're doing it to ourselves, right? And I think that's what I'm picking up from both of you, and I know I do that for sure. It's the scarcity mentality, like back against the wall. This will make me a better,
Yeah.
if I put my back against the wall, it'll force something out of me. And when you get, I guess, pseudo comfortable, the only way to really get that those ideas to pop back out are fear.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I feel like when I come to those spots from fear, it hits on that, like, I'm trying to make more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I've wanted to expand like our merch for our shop. And most of the time when I come to it mentally, it's from a aspect of I need more so that I can work less.
Yeah.
I need more. It's not the what's next thing. And so I keep having to table it. And it might be a thing where I still end up doing the same thing. I still end up expanding our merch at
For a
some
different
point.
reason.
Yeah,
Right.
but I'm coming at it from a scarcity thing of like, well, if I could do this, and when I really level it out, I'm like, it's so minimal in what, like I could cover that in like 2 tattoos a year, the profit margin we would make from t-shirts. It's not like, it's like, it really doesn't make that much sense to like lean so heavy into it, but good marketing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not, but every time you put out a shirt, I want it. Like, there was a time where at least a third of my clothing was Ian White tattoos, then later Safe House tattoos.
Yeah.
So I think you two should put your heads together and come up with a cool line of merch line. That would be dope.
He could draw it. I could print it.
That's right. That's right.
As long as you like skulls.
That's right.
Maybe some snakes.
I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like you've given us a lot, but I do want to do one more quick thing and go through.
I'm not ready for jumping jacks.
And talk
I'm
about
just not.
no. That's this is the first time
Yeah.
in a long time you're not here to do fitness.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the convention.
Yeah.
Let's go through that, because I think some of those that we obviously share. That's the most thing we have in common right now is doing a convention at the National Fairgrounds and what we had to endure in order to get it done, even though we love those folks over there.
Yeah.
Talk about your convention. How did you planned it? I mean, you took a long time to plan it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you telling me about it. I feel like it was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was more than that. So I'd always wanted to do a convention, and actually was supposed to put a small one on in, I don't know if it would have been that was in 2019. I think it would have been in 2019. The original was going to be in Marathon Music Works. When we had the opportunity to buy the space, we had to abandon that and move on. And then had some guys that put on a show in Iowa I knew, and they're like, think about doing one in Nashville. You want to partner up? And I was like, well, they put on a good show. This would probably be the only way I'd actually accomplish it, because there's so much of the logistics that I can't wrap my head around.
Oh, we know.
And so we did it, and kind of doing it remote. You know, these 3 guys are in Des Moines. I'm here, and we got through the first year of it back in October, and it went well. But those guys felt like they were spread a little too thin doing one here too, and like bringing their families here, getting Airbnbs, the profit margin in comparison to that. Like, is it really worth it? I probably would have done the same thing they did. So Lindsay and I bought them out. So now she and I are putting it on together. But we would have never just done it.
Yeah.
Right.
If it was like her and I sitting around talking and it was like, I think we're ready to do a convention, I don't think we would have ever.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, well, we've had the same thought. Like, neither one of us would probably have done it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And now we know we couldn't have.
Lindsay's a fantastic partner with that stuff. She's getting far more involved in the tattoo shop too, but it's a funny thing because of what, like, kind of like you talk about, you guys have different sort of, you know, optimist, pessimist, whatever. It's like she and I kind of have that in like ideas, reality. I have ideas that aren't very realistic. She has ideas that aren't very realistic, and we kind of are able to bounce these off. And then she's put on conventions before, actually, for her main job. She's executive director for a nonprofit. She's put on probably 5 conventions. They're obviously quite different than a tattoo convention, but you're not selling booth space and things like that. You're not getting sponsors, but it's more internally funded and all that stuff. But I had a dream the other night where we put it on the wrong date, and we were halfway into it, and I was like, wait, it's May. The show's in November. There's people lined up to buy tickets? Why are we that was a whole vivid dream I had. Wow. It was like too much melatonin or something. I was like, wow. And I woke up, was like, oh, that sucked. That feeling sucked. It was like, we got no artists here, but we got lines of people wanting to pay to get in, and all. It was like, so that's just like my reality.
But
now.
On the positive side, you had lines of people trying to.
That's true, yeah. And that's the part too. I mean, I don't know the model with you guys, but with ours, it's like the only money we make is off the door.
Yeah,
and it's we'll see how many people come in. Right. But it's also a thing of like, if not enough people come through the door, then artists don't want to do it again next year.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm sure that's very similar with you guys do.
That's very true, yeah.
It's a weird thing of like, do we overspend and hope that we recoup, or we're still figuring that stuff out. We hope to do this for a long time. Again, to kind of dote on my wife with it. She's created these systems that are really helpful. Like, I'm not good with a keyboard or any of that stuff, but I'm doing most of the data entry just to feel like I'm contributing. So when people register, we use a system called Monday and get them all in. And so now that everybody's in it, once you're in it, you're in it. So anybody who comes back next year, they're already in the system.
Yeah.
And I mean, she keeps tabs on everything. It's like, where are they from? Did they do tattoos last year? If they did, how many did they do? All this different stuff. And I mean, we just announced registration 3 weeks ago, I think. And we're 60 or 70% full.
Let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dang.
So I'm pretty pumped. I mean, I've gotten, since I left my house to come here, I got 2 more booths registered.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty good. It's going pretty good. I'll be freaked out till the day after it's over.
Well,
we
know about that.
Yeah. I love how that was just a cut. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's normal.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll ever not be that way, because you're taking ownership.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that's tied to it. It's as exhilarating as it is full of anxiety.
Yeah. Now, when you guys are doing your show, which I'm going to just need to come to see how you guys do it, as being 2 people that are personalities that are part of why people trust the thing, do you find yourself emceeing? Do you find yourself going around and shaking hands and kissing babies? What I was emceeing a lot last year. And this year, I think I'm going to split the emceeing role with another person, because I'm like, I think I'm better used off the stage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where the first year, it was like, I need people to know that I'm hosting this.
Yes.
So it was like, I should be on the stage. And I had fun, banter, all that. That was fun, but it took up a lot of the day because we have tattoo contests and all that stuff.
Right.
So I was doing all that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys are there, troubleshoot and put out fires, but is it also just being a presence and
we do
people seeing your faces?
Yeah, it's different for the both of us. Naturally, I think it's that way. I'm a day of guy. And Roy will tell you that. Like, I'm zipping around on a skateboard or remote control skateboard.
Yeah.
I'll happily have him just radio me problems. Like, I'll solve it or the team will. We usually have a good staff that comes and helps out. And Roy is like, he's the data dude. Mm-hmm. Like, he makes sure the point of sale's working. He makes sure the celebrities get where they need to go. All the stuff in advance, that the CAD drawings and keeping me on track with a spreadsheet and knowing how far we are at being sold and pushing the sales on that side. That's kind of where we're at as far as how the day goes. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but when it actually happens, though, in what we need, I think we'd both like to be better at is literally going around and saying thank you and shaking hands and talking to every last one of them. and we were better at that year one. There was less, there were less flyers to put out. It was a lot smaller, easier to manage. Last year, I may have shaken 20 hands of 20 different business owners out of 155.
Yeah. I was forced into it this last year, and it honestly ended up in a good way coming back to haunt me because our PA system was screwed up. So the back half of the room couldn't hear any announcements we made.
Yeah.
So we realized people didn't know that we had like free coffee for the artists.
Yeah.
They didn't know that we had a lounge full of free snacks and stuff for the artists. So I went around to out of 160 booths, I had to go to 80 of them.
Yeah.
And introduce myself and be like, hey, just so you know, we have this stuff. And in the end of it, I had a bunch of people come up to me. They're like, man, I've been to a bunch of shows and never even met the promoter.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were making sure we had what we need, I was like,
we get that.
I didn't want to be like, well, it was only because I had to.
Yeah.
But that's also where I'm like, I need to get off the stage and down and mix it up.
To me, as a business owner, that feels awesome.
Yeah.
Like when I get to shake the promoter's hand and the promoter thought of me and made that experience even better for me, I'm more likely to come back on that level. But that's what we do something similar. Like I'll have the kids, some of the volunteers walk around with a case of water.
Yeah.
Like you need water,
do that,
you need water. And they're distributing water. They're taking care of people on that level.
Yeah.
And it does reflect well on us. Even though I am missing a couple power strips.
We didn't rent them.
Right? Is that an accurate statement of like kind of how we divide and conquer?
Yeah, I'm not the day of guy. Like, I enjoy it, but I'm also not a people person.
Mm.
So, and there's a lot of people there.
There's a ton of people, yeah.
And I don't know why, but like going up and introducing myself to somebody, I'm like, who am I? Nobody gives a shit.
No.
So I'm like,
totally not true.
let Terry walk around and say hi to everybody. Like, it's just not my.
You need a shirt with his face on.
Yeah, it's just not my jam. So,
I name drop him all the time.
Yeah,
but we do. I think doing a better job of that is something we should always do.
Always strive to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Because, as great as this event is for everybody else, if the vendors aren't there, it doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah,
100% true.
and you want to go out on your own,
Yeah.
where you're just like, and that was it, not because it's not working anymore.
Yeah,
know.
that's 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the desire if it if it ever was to happen, which God willing it won't. But creating that quality experience, like Roy said, for the vendors, I think we're all united on that front, right? Like community is this, and so if community it's what our expectation of what we want that community to look like. How do we award them for being a part of that community? Because the rewards for us are year over year over year of loyalty and trust that we are going to put on a stellar show.
yeah,
And it sounds like that's what you're starting to hear with the people registering quickly. So
yeah.
watching you build it block by block, right? It literally from being solo to adding 2 guys, 3 guys, and watching you build it and dealing with the building problems, having to pivot, but still maintaining culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's an inspiration. Like I've enjoyed watching you grow and build it. It's been really cool. I know it's not easy. We definitely know it's not easy.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the listeners of this podcast to understand that that's not easy.
Yeah.
If it's not keeping you up at night, you might not be doing it right, even though they should be balanced at some point. But
Yeah.
Like
finding the way to tone your mind down just to force sleep.
Yeah.
It's like read a good book, I guess.
It's a whole other podcast right there.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm like Kindle and some melatonin. I'm like, I got to get my brain to shut off.
Yeah.
It's like the second you lay down, you're like, did I lock that door?
Yep.
I'm the opposite. I lay down, I'm asleep in seconds.
Yeah.
Until 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm shut out of a cannon.
You're like, it's
Like,
too
I
early. It's
can't
too early. I
turn
know
it
it's too
off.
early. I can't get up. I shouldn't get up. Before you know it, you're drinking coffee.
Yeah,
and
look, it's 4:30. I've been laying there for an hour and a half. I'm like, I give up.
You know what's funny is the only reason I won't make, because I'll wake up like that and I'll make myself go back to sleep. The math of how many cups of coffee my body can handle, I'm like, well, if I start now.
The fact that you're doing that math is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it used to be just drink oh, cool, I have more time to drink coffee.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I'll have had, because it's happened before. I wake up at 4 or whatever, and it's like, by 8, I've had 3 cups of coffee. I'm like, everybody's like, you don't do cocaine, right? So we're on the same page. Yeah.
I've literally said that to my wife. I've been like, I'm sorry I'm so aggressive. I have had 3 cups of coffee.
Oh, my poor Johnny, my shop manager, the amount of times that he has walked in the door and I'm like pacing around by the front desk and he's like, fuck, he's got ideas. Sorry for the language. And that's what happens. Yeah. And I finally, it took me a long time to realize, and I was like, that poor guy is going to have like a trauma response to me being in the shop before him.
He pulls in, he sees you, he just backs out.
Yeah. He's like, I'm done. We're not painting that wall, dude. We've gone through this. Yeah.
They say coffee is the lifeblood that fuels champions.
Yeah, I'll just be like, yeah. So anyway, in my weekend, I was like, all right, that's cool. Let's do that. Let's make this thing. And I'm like, okay, I gotta slow it down and remove myself from here.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah,
we're not that different.
Yeah.
Well, I want to leave as we start to land this plane. I want to leave you with the last word. As you're looking out there, and knowing that people are listening to this and they may be where you were, when you got kicked out of your lease, or they may be where you are when it's, losing 3 tattoo artists.
Yeah.
And it feels bleak. It feels tough. Maybe you could speak to that person, and then tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah. I mean, that person, it's like, if you believe in what you're doing, you gotta, you just keep moving forward. I hate to use that Rocky one that everybody's probably got written on their wall, but it's like, it's not how hard you can get hit, but how many times you get hit and keep getting up.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. I mean, there's so many times where I do feel like you got to reevaluate. Is this the right thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is the beating worth it? Right.
Yeah. But there's a certain level of like, the beatings come with it.
Sure.
It's like, it's par for the course. And then, for myself at least, I still have to remind myself of that. Like, I keep thinking that there's this line, still having doing it as long as I have to remind myself there isn't this line. There's not this line where it's like, oh, you get over this hump and now you coast from there.
Yeah. You get over that hump and see all the other humps.
Yeah, and that's really all it is. I mean, I've run roads like that where it's like what do they call that? Like a false peak. You're running up a hill like in Percy Warner or something, and you're like, oh, it's right there. I'll be able to rest. As soon as you get there, you're like, oh, there's 4 more hills.
Yeah. They're progressive.
Yeah. So I mean, it is like that, and that's okay. And that's the thing. That's and find community, find people. This kind of stuff. I'm a 12-step recovery person, and one of the best things I got out of that was not feeling alone in the feelings that I have. And being a small business owner, you got to find other small business owners and entrepreneurs to talk to about, to be like, and in anything you do. I went to an art show the other night, and all the artists that I knew that were at it were all like, so we need to start like a group together, and like, this is rough, right? Let's all talk about that. It's like, yeah. And it was like, yeah, I mean, whatever you're doing, you find other people that are doing it and be with them and be vulnerable with them and just sit and listen with them. Everybody's going through everything. Mm-hmm. So you're not alone in anything.
I think that's huge advice. That's very powerful. The most powerful advice, because it's a very, very lonely road. We talk about that a lot on this podcast. Like,
leadership's a lonely place. It was told to me, and I wanted to not believe it. And it's like it's tough. Yeah. You got to find other leaders in other businesses to sort of not necessarily commiserate, but also co-celebrate. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, that's an understated thing too. Co-celebrate's another big thing.
Yeah. If you just sit and look at all the crap that's hard, are you really gonna keep doing it?
No, definitely not.
But you got to acknowledge, like, you got to hear that other people have it hard.
Yeah.
And somebody else to hear you and nod and go, yep.
told Roy that the other day. I was like, he called me. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know we sold 6 booths. I was like, keep calling me with more of that, please.
Yeah.
It's a pick me up. You can end your day on a high note, you know. So.
Yeah, that's the text with my wife and I. I mean, they're like, so and so applied. We didn't know if they were going to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's good stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
it is good times. Well, I've missed sitting in your chair, getting blasted and having these long conversations.
Yeah, I think the last time was your throat.
Yeah, we couldn't talk then.
No, we probably were trying to, and I'm like, stop it.
I wanted to. Stop talking to me, Ian. I want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
No, those are good times. I truly do appreciate the many hours that you've had me in that chair, and I appreciate our relationship.
Yeah, same.
We've done a lot of things together. We've weathered a lot of things together.
Yeah.
And we've ran a lot of miles together too.
We have.
I wonder what the math is.
I've not been doing very much of that lately.
Yeah, same here. Roy, I want to let you, if you want to chime in and ask one last thing before you fall asleep over there.
Well, I'm not falling asleep. too caffeinated. Ask one last thing.
Or maybe leave the people with one more thing.
Yeah. Well, no, first, thank you for coming on and talking to us. It's always fun to hear the stories.
It is.
Like you said, having the community, someone else to talk to that's been up and down the roads. We're all at different, levels, and we've all went through some of the same things, which is one of the great commonalities of, doing your own thing and the good and the bad of it. So thanks for sharing that, because it's just good to hear.
It is.
And share.
Yeah.
But, one thing, random question, good tattoo question. What's the silliest tattoo you've been asked to put on anybody?
What's funny is I don't get asked to do too many silly tattoos. Everybody wants like the most meaningful. I'm like, bring it. Somebody book a silly tattoo on me. I think that if I had to pull one out of the air, I did one probably 15 years ago of a T-Rex holding a little birthday cake.
That's pretty good. It's pretty
and
good.
It's in like full color. It's like so out of spec for me, but it was fun. I like doing weird, funny stuff, but nobody ever asked me for it. Everybody's like, I need something to represent the light and the dark of life and death. Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, I'm with you, but
yeah. So my guy was telling me, he said, I'd asked him the same question. He's like, yeah, I had to tattoo my ass. I'm like, your own ass? He's like, no, this guy wanted a tattoo on his ass that said my ass.
Nice.
I'm like, what else? He's like, no, that's it. So it's literally script. It said, like, was he drunk? He's like, no, he wasn't. It's like the most random thing I've ever heard in my life.
I did, the early on, I did the, your name on somebody's butt.
Do you remember putting the state of Ohio on Steve Leopold's butt? Do you remember that? He lost a bet.
Oh, wait, yeah. Was that when I was still a Black 13?
No, you were across the street, but I don't think you had any other trainers at that time.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine, lost a bet with me.
I vaguely remember that.
If you do not do this, you have to go get a tattoo on your butt over at Ian's, and he literally put the state of Ohio.
I love it.
Just the outline.
I vaguely remember
that's
it.
Still there.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I've seen some funny tattoos get done. Yeah. So
that's good.
Some not as appropriate to chat about in public things, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can book a session at your studio.
Yeah, I'm at Safe House Tattoo on Gallatin in Englewood. SafeHouseTattoo.com. The convention is MiddleTennesseeTattoo.com. I don't think we put Expo in the thing. Yeah, I think it's MiddleTennesseeTattoo.com. The Expo is November 7th, 8th, and 9th of this year, and you can book with me through the website. Instagram is Art by Ian White, and I think that's it.
You got it.
3 days. You were very brave.
That's all tattoo conventions.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. That's par for the course for y'all.
Yeah. There's some that go Thursday through Sunday. I'm like, man, that's
That's a commitment.
That's a tall.
That is a commitment.
Yeah, even by the artist attending it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
long
we
time.
open a little bit late on Friday, but then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Usually have a pre-party. It's a lot.
There's no making it small. Well, like we said, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And guys, you can follow Ian. Make sure you check him out on Safe House. And go get your skin blasted by Ian White.
Yeah.
And we, I just want to, if you guys got anything out of this podcast, we'd love if you liked it, shared it, share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe. We appreciate your support, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.